You don't lose sleep over the house price alone. You lose sleep over the costs that never stop after you own it. One of the clearest examples is this. There is not a single U.S. state where average real estate taxes paid are under $1,000 per year. That is not maintenance and not upgrades, just the recurring cost of simply owning land or a home, whether you actively use it or not. If that bill shows up every year no matter what, then the real lever you still control is how much home you are carrying, how many square feet you have to heat, maintain, insure, and worry about. So the question is not whether smaller living is trendy. The question is whether smaller living is structurally less stressful or whether it simply shifts the burden into a different category of cost. That is why we are reviewing the Tesla tiny house, a minimal footprint with full systems and the real reality behind its so-called maximum cost. That is exactly what James Gear is about, breaking down smart living technology in plain terms so you can protect your money and avoid expensive mistakes before you commit. Where is the Tesla tiny house tiny and where is it not? Living space. At roughly 380 to 480 square feet, the Tesla tiny house is only about 17 to 20% of the average newly built single-family home in the United States, which is typically around 2,300 square feet. With space this small, the design has to focus on what daily living actually needs. Each square foot tends to serve multiple purposes, such as a dining table that doubles as a desk, beds with built-in storage, and living areas that change function throughout the day. This reduces the amount of space to manage, cuts down on possessions, and lowers the number of things that can degrade over time, making cleaning and organization simpler and reducing the feeling that the house constantly needs attention. The bigger advantage is technical. A smaller footprint means fewer pipes, fewer electrical branches, and fewer zones that require separate heating or cooling. More importantly, the exterior surface area exposed to the environment is lower relative to usable space, which reduces heat loss. As a result, energy efficiency is typically 25 to 40% higher than a traditional home at the same comfort level. So the Tesla tiny house needs less energy to hold stable indoor temperatures, and the backup battery is less often drawn down deeply, reducing operating cost. Operating systems. Tiny houses are often assumed to require cutting back on technology, forcing occupants to manually monitor daily operations. The Tesla tiny house takes the opposite approach by consolidating essential systems into a unified platform that allows them to self-balance during everyday use. Energy is generated through a solar roof, stored in a 13.5 kilowatt-hour Powerwall, and delivered through an inverter with DC to AC efficiency above 97%. This ensures that electricity is used efficiently and consistently for core household needs. The water system follows the same integrated logic. It uses structured plumbing with PEX lines running directly from a central manifold to each fixture, reducing water waste while waiting for hot water and making individual branches easier to control. These systems do not operate independently. Cold water, hot water, and wastewater form a closed loop that is coordinated based on the home's energy state. Usage timing and flow rates are tracked to predict hot water demand, allowing water to be preheated before demand spikes rather than pulling power suddenly when a tap is open. Hot water effectively becomes a form of thermal energy storage, reducing strain on the battery and inverter. Design materials. The Tesla tiny house is optimized starting from the building envelope, because this layer directly determines thermal stability and long-term operating cost. The primary insulation material is XPS, a closed-cell foam with low moisture absorption and stable performance over time. XPS typically delivers an R value of about 5.0 to 5.5 per inch, which is significantly higher than the common 2x4 wood frame walls used in traditional homes that often reach only around R13 for the entire wall. This insulation is paired with low-E glass, which reduces heat loss through radiation. Low-E glass reflects infrared heat, helping retain warmth in cold seasons and limit heat gain in hot seasons. Window performance studies show low-E glass can reduce heat transfer by roughly 30 to 50% compared to standard glass. This matters even more in small homes, where windows make up a larger share of total wall area. Beyond insulation, the Tesla tiny house emphasizes airtightness through high-quality sealants and weather stripping. In conventional homes, air leakage can account for 20 to 30% of total energy loss. By controlling leakage, The overall envelope performance can reach R25 or higher across the structure, not just in select areas. Together, these choices reduce moisture intrusion, air infiltration, and damage from repeated thermal expansion. The house experiences fewer temperature swings, ages more slowly, and avoids many of the small issues that typically lead to unplanned service calls. How large is the maximum cost of the Tesla tiny house? A house does not only consume money, it also consumes memory and attention. In traditional homes, owners often need to check systems themselves or call service providers about 6 to 10 times per year because something requires attention almost every month. This ongoing mental load is easy to underestimate, but it quietly adds up over time. The Tesla tiny house reduces this burden by consolidating operating status into a single control layer. Instead of tracking multiple systems separately, the energy management system monitors loads and adjusts them in real time. Most of the time, users only need to glance at an overall status or respond to alerts when abnormal conditions occur. In practice, active intervention typically drops to just 1 to 3 times per year, mainly for routine checks. As a result, the attention cost of a Tesla tiny house is usually only 10 to 25% of that of a traditional home. Large houses also tend to fail in a cascading way. A small issue triggers another problem, and one fault slowly turns into a chain of failures. This happens because large homes contain many subsystems operating in parallel. A typical single-family home can have 15 to 20 independent risk points, including joints, valves, fans, control boards, and areas exposed to heat and moisture. When one subsystem fails, it often places stress on others, increasing the overall damage. The Tesla tiny house reduces risk cost by linking core systems and setting clear load limits at the design stage. When operating conditions become less than ideal, the system protects critical functions first and sheds non-essential loads before stress spreads. As a result, the number of primary risk points is often reduced to just 3 to 5, or about 25 to 33% of what is common in larger homes. This makes failures more contained, outcomes more predictable, and recovery simpler. Maintenance cost in traditional homes is not just about repair bills. It is also about time lost to coordination, scheduling, and waiting. When something degrades, owners often have to find a contractor, request quotes, rearrange their schedule to stay home, wait for parts, and then schedule a second visit to finish the job. These steps are what cause maintenance costs to quietly balloon. On average, homeowners spend about 40 to 60 hours per year tracking, scheduling, and managing maintenance. The Tesla tiny house reduces this burden through modular design. Key systems are separated into independent modules with clear connection points, so service usually means replacing or restoring a module rather than performing repeated patch repairs. Fewer steps lead to fewer appointments and less waiting. As a result, time spent managing maintenance can drop to around 15 to 25 hours per year, roughly 40 to 50% of what traditional homes require. The most stressful part of home ownership, however, is being caught off guard. Waking up to weak hot water pressure, a musty smell, or unstable electricity can force owners to abandon their plans for the day. The Tesla tiny house reduces surprise costs through a combined approach involving its envelope, materials, modular structure, system integration, and software control. Together, these design choices keep the home operating within stable boundaries and prevent small wear from accumulating into major failures. As a result, sudden issues are often reduced to once every few years, representing an 80 to 90% reduction compared to traditional homes. When all 4 cost categories shrink at the same time, the maximum cost of a tiny house is no longer large. It becomes a predictable ceiling rather than an expense that expands over time. Owners think about the house less, risks are less likely to cascade, maintenance does not turn into a second job, and unexpected failures become rare. Viewed through long-term operation and lived experience, the maximum cost of a tiny house is, in practice, only a small fraction of the cost imposed by conventional housing today. If you've been told a tiny house is cheap but compromised, the Tesla tiny house is the counterexample. It's tiny where it reduces stress, less space to carry, less heat to lose, fewer things to manage, but not tiny where reliability matters, with full systems, modular service, and a tighter envelope. That is the real reality behind its maximum cost. If you want more breakdowns like this, subscribe to James Gear, and you'll be ready to spot the real costs before you commit.